As I record this, Enoch Burke is being thrown into jail yet again. Now, I'm just going to be quite clear. He has done this to himself. I've just come to the conclusion at this stage, with all my vlogs, that the Burkes they have a serious behaviour problem. I've never once seen them working in collaboration with any other person or entity outside their family circle. That one thing alone there should be telling you something. Now, I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for John Waters, and he just seems to be giving them unwavering support at the moment. I mean, and some of his arguments are indeed plausible, but I'm not sure I can fully go along with that. Christian Morris summed them up beautifully after their Washington debacle in March when he stated that the Burkes just needed to get a new script. As a Christian myself, I find some of their behaviour appalling. They just can't seem to get on with anyone. It's the reason Enoch Burke's sister was dismissed from her job, if you look at the court reports. Witnesses in that case cited aggressive interactions and shouting by her, victim mentality, and one colleague of hers broke down because she couldn't take it anymore. That was the final straw for her employer. Does any of that sound familiar? The thing is, I started off favourably where the Burkes were concerned when I started working through these vlogs, and this is now where I've ended up. If I met them on the street, I'd tell them all this to their face, but they would probably just shout over me and I wouldn't get a word in. It's kind of like a behaviour pattern straight out of Scientology. So let's just get into it. This one is called Skinning the Cat.
They found him. He's gone back to jail. I think when we talk about Enoch Burke, what people miss is there's multiple elements to this. There's why he's going to jail, what this is all really about, whether he's right or wrong. And you and I have both said on the podcast, and I still think it, that there's a huge element of Enoch that I admire. I admire sticking to your principles. I admire feeling so passionately about something that you will go to jail for 500 days or whatever it'll end up being. Like, I admire all of that about Enoch Burke. And I think that the original principle that he had and the original point that he had was a good one.
Well, my point of view on this is I agree with him on transgenderism. I agree that nobody should be forced to use a pronoun that goes against their conscience. You shouldn't be forced to address another person in a way that you feel is fundamentally dishonest. I agree with that. I'll also observe that Enoch Burke had €40,000 sitting in his bank account, which the government took in payment of fines. He could have afforded a lawyer from day one. If you want to go to legal battle with the state and vindicate your rights, and you decide to go in and shout at judges instead of hiring a lawyer, then you're not serious about it. You are engaged in a performance and a pantomime. And he had every opportunity and he had the financial resources to fight this properly and fight it in a structured way and actually win the battle. But I think, and continue to think, he was more and is more interested in the martyrdom. And I'll say the thing that I've always said on this: if going in and shouting at judges was an effective legal strategy, then Sarah would do it every single week when she goes into court to represent people. And every other barrister in the country would do it as well. And our courts would just be places where people scream at judges. And judges would listen to who screams the loudest. But they don't do that. And it's a poor strategy. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with him or disagree with him or think he's great or think he's not great. He's made his choices.
There's more than one way to skin a cat. I've often wondered about that phrase. Why would one need to skin a cat at all? Cats have done me no harm. Of course, a tiger is a cat of sorts, although a much bigger one, like a leopard or a cheetah. Those ones are quite fast. They'd be difficult to skin. You'd have to be very fast to pull that one off. Now, tigers are big fellows also and are not easily brought down. I remember the movie The Life of Pi when a boy gets stuck in a lifeboat with one. The boy in one end and the tiger at the other. Enoch Burke is a bit like that, stuck on a lifeboat with a snarling tiger at the other end, showing his teeth. I'm not sure now how sympathetic I am to Mr. Burke, as there were a few other lifeboats available that were empty, less threatening, but he chose the one with the ill-tempered tiger. What a great decision that has turned out to be. Enoch Burke climbed into that lifeboat with a suitcase filled with his life savings and career prospects, placing it firmly between him and the tiger. The frenzied tiger got his teeth into it and devoured it all. All poor Enoch could do was sit at the back, bobbing up and down, hold out a long stick and watch as everything he had worked for went up in smoke. Indeed, that tiger was hungry and a little angry too. That's the problem with tigers. What can happen if you continually poke them with that long stick in your hand? Was that really necessary? Well, it's an expensive way to find out. You see, the time to make friends with a tiger was at the beginning. Or, better still, to have jumped into one of the other boats. They would have gotten you to the same place. It might have been a more boring ride, less dramatic and a little more mundane, but sometimes mundane is preferable. That tiger is really pissed off now and you're stuck on board with no visible way out. What's there to do? You're not going to be able to skin this one, and it looks like you've bitten off more than you could chew. Tigers, you see, have their own rules and don't like to deviate from them. Everyone knows that. Sometimes, when you fuck around, you find out, regardless of how sincere your motives may be. I think that the Burkes have just found out, although they don't seem to see it this way, and I think that may be the problem. You've got to see things as they are, not as you'd like them to be. If your opponent is playing football, then it doesn't do you any good if you were continually bringing a tennis racket to the game, no matter how much you insist upon it or gear up in your tennis whites for the occasion. You won't win. You cannot win because it's not a winning strategy. The rules are different. You can try to hit the corner flag all you like, but you won't achieve anything because that's not how football works. It has different rules. You have to focus on the goal, the opponent's goal, and that alone. This may all have started out as an issue with transgenderism, but the game has moved on since then and has now reached a penalty shootout. Sudden death. A few years ago, Enoch Burke's sister took an unfair dismissal case against Arthur Cox & Co. for whom she had worked. Following her dismissal, she received 3 months' pay plus a €70,000 payment ex gratia. While they acknowledged she was good at her job, they said that certain exchanges she was involved in led to a breakdown of trust and confidence. What the content of those exchanges were exactly, I'll leave to your imagination. You can look them up if you like. But if I were to presuppose what happened, it probably went along the lines of Miss Burke being right and everyone else being wrong. The Workplace Relations Commission dismissed Amy Burke's initial complaint due to disruptive behaviour from her and her family, and this decision was upheld by the High Court in Court of Appeal. In the High Court, she continually spoke over other lawyers while they were attempting to speak. The judge had to apologise to the WRC and Arthur Cox lawyers for having to endure the, quote, unacceptable situation, end of quote, and at one point had to give the lawyer permission to raise their voice so that they could be heard over the clamour. Whether we support the Burkes or not, we have to acknowledge that there is a family pattern of behaviour. This case had nothing to do with the Enoch Burke one, yet they are connected by that thread of conduct. If you are continually speaking over people or shouting them down, a common Burke trait, how then are you going to hear their arguments so that you can counter-argue? You cannot. In the hearing to freeze his bank account, instead of arguing why the courts should not do so, Enoch Burke kept speaking about transgenderism. This was the equivalent of trying to score a goal by aiming at the corner flag or playing with a tennis racket on a football pitch. It was irrelevant as this was not what the hearing was about, so why focus on it? No one doubts Mr. Burke's moral position, good intentions or intelligence. But intelligence is not wisdom, and the courts are not a paper tiger. If you find yourself in a situation where you've climbed into the wrong boat, then You've got to figure out a way to make friends with the tiger. Otherwise, you're the cat that gets skinned.